All right, so my name's Joe.
I'm Eric.
We're going to be covering Gapminder. It's pretty much a data comparison tool that makes data flow together in an easy to understand and aesthetically pleasing manner. Today we're going to be going over the topics of the pros, cons, different subjects that can be used in, specific examples of how teachers are using it, and we're going to give a hands-on demonstration.
Which I'm going to do right now because there's a lot to cover and I don't want to just type it all up, so I'll show you. Alright, so basically when you go to Gapminder, the website's gapminder.org. When you first get here, it goes to the home. It has information about the guy who created it, Hans Rosling, and a bunch of other interesting articles. The main thing we're going to cover, though, is under the tab Gapminder World. And basically, like Joe said, and what we said on our presentation, was that Gapminder is a data comparison tool on an XY coordinate plane. And you see this graph is a little bit confusing. But all these dots are different countries. The bigger dots mean larger population. There's China, India, United States is up here. And if you look on the y-axis, this is life expectancy, and the x-axis is income per person. With these, and this is currently, so the higher income per person usually means higher life expectancy, at least in this graph. But if you go to either of the axes, you can see that there are hundreds upon hundreds. I think the website says there are 507 different data sets you can use. So if you want to do math achievement in 4th grade versus income per person, you can do that. Granted, sometimes you'll get graphs that are very confusing and don't make sense because you have to change the dependent and independent variables when you're putting them in here. Let's go back to the one we just had. One of the coolest things about this website, though, is that it has the data throughout time, starting at 1800. Not all data sets are like this, though. Some start in 1980, especially with CO2 emissions, and you get to that in technology. But you start back at 1800, and then you can hit speed a little bit, and you can hit play. And you watch go through time where each of these countries sits on this graph. And if you notice, some of the dots are color coordinated based on region of the world. You can change that to they're all one color. You can change it by north-south hemisphere and that sort of thing. And a lot of the data on here, there's a caveat at the top that says a lot of the data before 1900 is unclear because, especially with African nations, they just didn't have any data on this sort of thing until around 1900. But you can also change the size of the dots based on all of the same indicators, so they change in size, like natural disasters. And so you can change these to anything, comparing them. And also one of the neat things that you can do is if, say, you want to track a country. So say I want to look at Cuba. So you start back at 1800. And it'll track Cuba's progress. On each little dot in that line is a place where we actually have data for it. See? And if you're confused as to how to use it, there's also a how to use button. And there are videos on how to do this. There are a lot more functions on here. You can change the color of them to indicate different things. There's also the colors, if you want to do one color or different by region. I prefer to do different by region. But yeah, that's basically the functions of Gapminder. Alright, there are a lot of pros to Gapminder. First of all, it's completely free. And there's also an online version, which is the one I showed you, and a downloadable version. So if you're going to a setting where you don't have internet, you can download the downloadable version, and it's the exact same thing, same videos, same everything as the website. And there are also hundreds of data sets. Like I said, there are around 500 data sets you can use. Yeah.
All right, so some of the pros or cons are, you're limited by the actual data that they have on the website. I don't know exactly how they input data.
There's actually a section on the website that has where they get all the data from, but you cannot add your own data. You have to use the data that they already have on the website.
And then, like we said during the actual hands-on, some of the actual features are kind of tricky to use. It takes a little bit of time to work with it. I spent maybe an hour and a half, and I was still a little confused. But and it also, like we said, limited uses because again, data availability.
And for the system requirements, the online version should work in any internet browser. I used Google Chrome when I did it. I have seen some things that other people were having problems with Internet Explorer, having the graph load really slowly, but that might just be Internet Explorer versus Google Chrome. And the downloadable version can be downloaded for PCs, Macs, or Linux-based computers, and it's a very simple program, so it should be able to run on any computer that's under 10 years old.
All right, so some of the subject areas that we were looking at, like we said before, it's all data sets, so history is obviously a big one. So one of the examples we came up with is you can track military growth throughout the different countries and figure out what time periods. You can have the students figure out on their own why increases and decreases within different countries. Sociology was another big one with a lot of the data they had on there. One of the ones I found was cell phone usage per 1,000 people. So you can have your classes figure out where they stack up in that ratio, figure out if they think the statistics are biased or not. And outside the classroom on its own, it has a lot of health-related statistics. So I found things with tuberculosis, AIDS, pretty much any disease on there, based on ages, genders, and geographic locations. All right, then for some classroom examples, we're going to go to the website over here. Again, this is right on their actual page. This video here, it's a 3-minute video, so I'm not actually going to play it, but this is a very specific example. This guy had, it was 8-year-olds, right?
Eighth grade students.
8th grade students. Yeah. And they were comparing different topographical and geographical locations in different rises and falls. Now down here they have a bunch of different examples. You have a Gapminder card game you can play. You have a lesson, 200 years changing the world. So in here it actually mentions in 1800 income per person was low and life expectancy very short. So they actually have data that goes all the way back that far. But like we were saying, how some of it's actually, it's not the best data because they weren't collecting it, but whatever they have you can use. You have another life expectancy, quiz global development here. Pretty much whatever you can use that data for. So you're probably going to want to use it between 8th grade and high school, possibly even in college for whatever you guys are taking your classes in.
In our conclusion, based on what we've used it for, I've used it in a few classes before, especially geography and history classes. It's a great tool for what it's designed for. If you need to analyze data, like I said, there are 500 data sets, so you can compare, TV and cell phone usage, whatever you want to compare. The data is also very informative. They have pre-made, because sometimes, like I said, you'll make a graph and the dots are just going crazy, no idea what's going on. That's just because the data that they have, you put it on the wrong axis, or just the data doesn't really work well together. But they have pre-made graphs to go with the lesson plans that they already have on there. However, it has limited classroom uses outside of social studies. So like I said, it's great for sociology, for history, for government classes, any social science. Trying to use it in a math classroom, though, might find it a little more difficult. And also, it's sometimes hard to get the right data sets to work together in a meaningful way other than having random dots go over the place. But that's it. Any questions? Yeah.
So obviously you can see the progression over time on the graph, but is there any way to actually see that information like right now? Do you know what I mean? Like, so for example, you showed Cuba. Is there any way to see those numbers, or do you have to like plot it yourself and find each number and like find each year and
to find specific data points that are on, like for Cuba? They have it on the website. There's a section that has where they get statistics from. I don't know if you can actually figure out the exact without having to map it yourself.
Yeah.
But like what I did in my geography class was we had to pick a country, and whenever the graph bounced around a lot, you had to figure out why I was doing that. So that's kind of how I've used it. But yeah, if you go on to where they have the statistics on the website, it'll have the data where they got it from and probably the specific data points where they got it from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anything else? All right.
Alright, so basically, for our video, we could have done a few things better. I personally could have done, could have spoken a bit slower, because I always have a problem with talking too fast during presentations. Maybe practice a bit more because I said a lot, which is just kind of what I do. Because I wanted to make the presentation a little bit longer, I think, and I didn't know the information as well as I probably should have.
I think for my part, my body language was probably not appropriate for that. I'm used to having like a podium in front of me to use, especially to have my note cards hidden on top there. Another thing, probably just knowing the information more. I didn't really get to work too much in depth with it, but I could have done a little more research. That's about all I had.
Yeah, that's relatively perfect, like usual.
Like usual. Thank you for watching our video. You have a good day.